Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we are going to be talking about how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can fix their offensive line in this upcoming offseason. So guys, without further ado, let's talk about it. Another season has passed and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line has continued to struggle for yet another year. Not only were they very much rough in pass blocking like they have been the past couple of years, but especially in run blocking, this offensive line just was not getting it done. Plain and simple. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that Jameis Winston needs a run game to be a successful quarterback, and I do agree with that. Having a good run game would certainly help out this team and Jameis Winston a lot. I have seen some people say that the Buccaneers should get a running back at some point this offseason, and I will be making a video about that topic later on, but I disagree with that. I think that Ronald Jones can be a three-down back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think we saw that this past season. I do think, however, that the Buccaneers offensive line should learn how to run block better. The entire season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line could not run block. It was so infuriating. I can't describe the anger that it gave me to see the lack of competence in run blocking that the offensive line had with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past season. And this isn't a new thing. They haven't been able to run block for the past couple of years now. Not only do you factor that in with the semi-poor pass blocking and the penalties that were a problem for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line last year as well, and this unit definitely has a handful of question marks going into this offseason. Take a look at some of the guys right now that are on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster on the offensive line. First guy, Donovan Smith. He is going to be a free agent in 2020. He's 26 years old, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers second-round draft pick. He's making over $14 million for the next 2 seasons, but the Buccaneers can move on with no dead money after next season. So the case with Donovan Smith has been a really interesting one, and I've heard a wide variety of opinions. In my own opinion, I do think that he has been terribly inconsistent. Now, he has been able to be an Iron Man for this team. He has not missed many, if at any games whatsoever. I don't even think he has missed one full game his entire career so far up to this point with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this inconsistency has been a big problem, especially whenever you consider that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are giving him over $14 million on his current contract. Now, I have seen some people say that, well, yes, you could do a lot better than Donovan Smith, but you could also do a lot worse than Donovan Smith, and I do agree with that. I do think that that is a very valid point. However, I do think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should look at certain tackles that can be fringe starters for this team if they need to bench Donovan Smith in some scenario moving on with next season, or if they need to move on from him entirely after the Buccaneers 2020 season. The next 3 guys we have: Ali Marpet, free agent in 2024, 26 years old, making over $10 million until the end of 2024. I have no problems with him at all. I love Ali Marpet. I think that he is one of the best left guards in the entire league. He should be a Pro Bowler every single season, but he plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so he isn't getting that kind of recognition yet until the team starts to do better. I love Ali Marpet. I have no problems with him at all. He was a small school second-round draft pick, and I love him. Ryan Jensen, he is going to be a free agent in 2022. He was a free agent signing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2 seasons ago. He is 28 years old and is currently making $10 million until the end of his contract per year. Again, much like Ali Marpet, I have no problems with Ryan Smith. The leap that he made from last season to this season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was so huge. He's a very strong leader. He cut down on the penalties, and he was even drawing penalties from opposing defensive linemen to help out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And really this season, he was one of the best at his positions in the entire NFL. So again, much like Ali Marpet, I have no problems with him at all either. And then finally, Alex Cappa, he is going to be a free agent in 2022. He is 24 years old, a former third-round draft pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's making less than $1 million per year in his contract until the end of his current contract. And again, you know, I really think that much like Ryan Jensen, Alex Cappa made a big leap from last year to this year. Dirk Cutter didn't play him. He played Caleb Benenoch over Alex Cappa, which is very confusing because this year Alex Cappa looked like a vastly improved offensive lineman, and he was really one tough son of a gun for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was playing through a broken arm, for goodness sake. The guy is an absolute beast, an absolute monster, and I'm very happy we have him on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he has a bright future ahead of him, and he's a very, very good young offensive guard. Now, the last guy I want to talk about when mentioning the starters is right tackle DeMar Dodson. Now, DeMar Dodson is a free agent this offseason. He is 34 years old, and in his last contract, he made over $4 million per year. Now, injuries have definitely slowed DeMar Dodson down, and the penalties have been especially excruciating for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan base to watch. It seems like every time a big play happens, be it a passing play or a running play, there's some type of penalty, and seemingly, usually, it's DeMar Dodson getting the penalty. However, with all that being said, I wouldn't mind DeMar Dodson coming back on a cheaper salary, I guess I should say, to be a backup right tackle for this team. And I know I've had, my fair share of opinions with DeMar Dodson. I've criticized him a lot this past season, and he is very much up there in age, and I do think it is time to replace him at the starting right tackle position, but I still think that he could be a valuable asset as a mentor and a backup to a lot of the offensive linemen that are currently on the Buccaneers team. Some other guys to mention here real quick before we start getting into some of the players that the Buccaneers could add via free agency or via the draft are guys like Earl Watford, who is slated to be a free agent this offseason, Zach Bailey, who is currently under contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Mike Lidke, who is also scheduled to be a free agent this offseason as well. All three of these guys, just to make it short and simple, I think that they could be very, very solid backups. Earl Watford, he had to come in and play some games whenever Alex Kappa and DeMar Dodson suffered injuries at points this season, and I think he did a decently respectable job, and I wouldn't mind him coming back on a cheap deal to be a backup for this team. Zach Bailey, we didn't really get to see what he could do because he did suffer an injury, but he did make the initial 53-man roster, and Bruce Arians seemed to like him a lot, so he could always be a backup as well. And then finally, Michael Lidke, he had a very similar scenario to Zach Bailey. He was a actually very capable backup with Dirk Cutter and his coaching staff, but this year, he didn't get to prove that because, again, he suffered an injury that put him out for the year, but Bruce Arians also seems to like him as well. With that being said, let's start going over some of the free agents that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could add this offseason before the NFL draft rolls around. The first couple of guys I want to talk about are right tackles, and they are Darrell Williams from the Carolina Panthers and Jack Conklin from the Tennessee Titans. Now, talking about Darrell Williams first, I like Darrell Williams. I don't think that he is the greatest right tackle in the world, but I do think that he could be a very, very solid backup, very DeMar Dodson level-esque. He could be a fringe starter for you. If you decide to draft an offensive lineman in the first round, Darrell Williams could be a very respectable backup at both tackle positions, in my opinion, and I think that he could do a very, very good job and not cost a lot of money. Jack Conklin, on the other hand, is an entirely different story. This guy would be an all-star starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, he is going to command a lot of money. I believe the expected market value right now for him is $15 million. I don't know if the Tennessee Titans are going to be able to pay that, considering they have to pay Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, but I think Jack Conklin, if he goes into free agency, the Buccaneers should be interested. I mean, he would just be amazing, and the Buccaneers would have relatively solid starters at all of their positions, except maybe you could make an argument for Donovan Smith, and he would be instrumental in helping out whoever is under center at the quarterback position when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take the field in 2020. Next, talking about some left tackles that the Buccaneers could look at, DJ Humphries and Greg Robinson. DJ Humphries, former Bruce Arians first-round draft pick. Greg Robinson, former first-round draft pick of the Cleveland Browns. Both these guys, I think, would be solid backups at the left tackle position. I don't know how much money they're going to command. That is definitely going to be in question, but I think that both of these guys would be very solid fringe starter-esque guys behind Donovan Smith, guys that you could put in to a starting position if you need to, if Donovan Smith begins to struggle or if he suffers an injury. I think that both these guys have done a solid job with their respectable teams, and I think that if they hit the open market, the Buccaneers should definitely be interested in them as kind of like fringe starters and very, very capable backups. Finally, 4 guards that I want to mention that the Buccaneers should be interested in are Quinton Spain, Joe Hage, Greg Van Roten, and Alex Lewis. Now, Quinton Spain is of the Buffalo Bills, Joe Hage is of the Indianapolis Colts, Greg Van Roten is of the Carolina Panthers, and Alex Lewis is of the New York Jets. Now, all of these guys would be high-tier backups for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because obviously Alex Kappa and Ali Marpet, those are some very solid solid starting guards, I guess I should say, who could have some very solid backups behind them, like the guys that I mentioned. Again, all 4 of the guys that I just mentioned, I think could do a very, very capable job if they need to come in. Should one of those guys get injured, especially Alex Kappa, as he had suffered multiple injuries this past season, that would definitely be something to keep an eye on moving forward. And even more so in the case of Alex Kappa, maybe you could even start one of these guys at offensive guard and swing Alex Kappa out to right tackle, where he could start over a guy like DeMar Dodson. Imagine a scenario where Quinton Spain, Joe Hage, Greg Van Roten, or Alex Lewis is your starting right guard, and then Alex Kappa is your starting right tackle, with DeMar Dodson, say, being the backup right tackle. That would be a pretty okay line, in my opinion. I really wouldn't have any problems with that. Again, I think that you would have 4 solid guys in, whoever the Buccaneers would decide to start at guard: Alex Kappa, Ryan Jensen, and Ali Marpet. Now, Donovan Smith would still be a question mark there, but 4 out of 5 is a pretty decent offensive line, in my opinion, and that could definitely be something the Buccaneers explore. If not in free agency, then definitely in the draft. And finally, let's talk about the draft. Now, this is the scenario that I want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to explore the most. I really want them to take an offensive lineman in the first round. And I know people are going to say, oh, James, Jason Light does not take offensive linemen early in a draft. That's incorrect. Donovan Smith is a second-round draft pick, Ali Marpet's a second-round draft pick, and Alex Kappa is a third-round draft pick. So no, you can't say that Jason Light doesn't take offensive linemen early. He absolutely does. You know who else does? Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians has taken multiple offensive linemen in the first round, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes that way in this upcoming draft to replace an old veteran like DeMar Dodson at right tackle. Looking at some of the guys that the Buccaneers could be interested in the first round, you have guys like Andrew Thomas, the tackle out of Georgia, Jedrick Willis, the tackle out of Alabama, Josh Jones, the tackle out of Houston, Austin Jackson, the tackle out of USC, Tyler Biadasz, offensive lineman out of Wisconsin, and Netane Moody, an offensive lineman out of Fresno State. Now, all 6 of those guys that I just mentioned are young. They're hungry, they're athletic, and they're in that new age of offensive linemen that are really adapting to the current edge rushers of the NFL with just their insane athleticism. These offensive linemen are just as athletic. I really think that any of the 6 guys that I just mentioned can be a starter for you, be it at right tackle, replacing DeMar Dodson and him sliding into a more of a backup mentorship type of role, or possibly even sliding into guard and moving Alex Kappa out to right tackle. I think that both those scenarios I would be 100% fine with. It is the scenario that I want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to explore most. Getting an offensive lineman in the first round I think is a must, and if I really had to break it down even more, I would prefer one of the tackles that I mentioned. A guy like Jedrick Wills, he's definitely a guy I think the Buccaneers should be interested in at pick number 14. I think he would be an immediate starter at right tackle, especially how they train those offensive linemen at Alabama. They are pretty much NFL ready their first year in college, so I really think that the Buccaneers could benefit by drafting a right tackle in the first round of the 2020 NFL Draft. So guys, to make a long story short here, I do think the Buccaneers do need to explore a lot of options with their offensive line. They need more depth at pretty much every single position in the backup offensive line category, and you do need to find a replacement for DeMar Dodson. I wouldn't necessarily, say throwing DeMar Dodson as the starting right tackle for the 2020 season would be the absolute worst thing in the world, but I would prefer somebody to come in and be a new starting right tackle for this team, and I would be fine with DeMar Dodson sliding into a backup mentorship type role with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Specifically, I would like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to draft a right tackle in this upcoming NFL draft in the first round. Jedrick Wills, he is my top guy right now. That could definitely change as time goes on, especially as I'm doing the mock drafts, and I will be sure to keep you updated if anything changes in my mind. But guys, that's how I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could/should fix their offensive line in this upcoming offseason. What do you guys think about all of the players that I mentioned in this video? The players on the current Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster, the free agent options that I threw out there, as well as the players I think the Buccaneers could draft in the first round. Let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. And guys, until the next video or the next live stream, I will see you guys in the next one. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.